Hmm. Okay, we're
Yeah.
live.
So,
We're live. Yeah, but
okay.
carry on. I mean, I think you'll be very impressed with me. I actually have an EV, so
Acha.
yeah.
Oh, very good. Yeah. So this was somebody else's car that. And so today
Hmm.
they were talking about, as in, the most surprising thing was that the same middle class that complains about bad air and doesn't want to pay, parking, uh, talks about Delhi being a gas chamber. But here, they're totally okay to really not let go of their 10-year-old BMW or their fancy car. And how media actually is siding with the middle
Yeah,
class.
yeah,
And we're
yeah.
talking about road work. And we think suddenly PUC certificate has become like the best certificate, the most authentic piece of scientific document that perhaps we have in the country. And but it's also, there's so many studies already. As in, how can a 15-year-old car be better than a new one? And indeed, like imagine I think in London it's around 1,800 rupees per day. You have to pay extra if you have a car which is older than 10 years. In Singapore, it automatically deregisters. And also this conversation right now is about fuel. This ban has been going on till 2015. So it's not as if it's new. It's not Rekha Gupta. It's not grandstanding of Aam Aadmi Party right now that oh well, how are they doing this? As in this has been there. It's only about fuel that you can't पेट्रोल नहीं भरवा सकते हो आप, वो अभी आया है. अदरवाइज तो ये रूल तो था ही है. This was an NGT order of 2015, which was again, I think, upheld by Supreme Court in 2018, and took them 10 years to really walk this up. But that's what, like, imagine when as in our conversation today, I'm sure, it is going to be about climate and climate change and those things. But what is that? As in, it's all us. As in, I'm sitting here, I have one light on my left, one light on my right. We are what is climate change? We are climate change at the end of the day. So we crib about everything else, but our way of living or our convenient way of living should not be compromised at all. And that's the unfortunate double standard that we all have as to. And then say, oh, well, fighter
I'm
aircraft
more
bhi to rehta hai itne time pe.
I'm more environment friendly with you because I never have good lighting for my videos.
No, as in I also, as in I just, these are LEDs, small little, there's hardly any light. But what I mean to say is that, the lifestyle that we all lead.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I bought my EV and I'm very happy with it actually. And I don't drive around too much.
What will happen? By the way, how do you charge your EV on solar?
Oh no, that's also something you can do.
No, you can't, and therefore it's an oxymoron in many ways. That imagine an EV that runs on thermal.
Oh
your
no, on
EV runs on your electricity. The grid is still 60% thermal. So, as in, fine, it's a good move. It's better than everything else. So, what EV does is EV does it's an end of pipe pollution नहीं हो रहा है, right? आपके pipe से नहीं निकल रहा है pollution. But beginning of pipe जो है वहां तो हो रहा है ना 100 kilometers square kilometer range में.
At this rate, we'll go back to horse and carriages, yeah, and then it'll be
not. But again, as in, do we ठीक है? As in, that's one thing. Oh, strike the balance. That's the other thing that we'd like to say.
Yeah.
But कर लो 10 साल कम करवा देते हैं आपका जिंदगी थोड़ा. आप डिस्काउंट दे दो 10 years life expectancy कम करवा देते हैं.
I was just going to say I'll move to Uttarakhand, and then I was like, oh my God, maybe not, because that's
Aren't you from Uttarakhand?
I am. That's why I get like so. I mean, everyone gets agitated about it, but I just feel like these are such simple, poor people who get crushed by these situations, and then it's on to the next headline, and nobody like.
Yeah, suddenly, as in yesterday. So, as in, I will not take names because. So I was doing. In the last 2 days, I've been doing back-to-back shows. And then suddenly at 7 p.m. I was doing one, and the Prime Minister was inaugurating the Kartavya Bhavan. So this breaking news that for which I was supposed to be there for this disaster, and then the show for half the time actually went there. Fine, they came back. Then I had another show on. So I had a show on. Fine, it's on NDTV, and there was Times Now at 9, and then 9:30 I had India Today, Rajdeep. And imagine, just because the Trump story broke, this story out. And today, this story is not there anywhere, as nobody is talking about it. And right now, by the way, that story is horrific because nobody's even reached. In the sense, right now we only have that number called 5, which was yesterday 4, more than 48
Yeah.
hours. No, not a
Which
single
is
person has
impossible.
got injured. Exactly.
Which is impossible.
And not a
Which is
single
impossible.
injury report that we have. Nothing. Evacuation
No.
numbers are coming of 200 and 300, but that's airlifted from Gangotri. Those are tourists, not the
That is nothing to do
people
with
who
it.
are who's under the sludge. Uska to kuch kaam hi nahi hua hai.
No,
So
and the
that's the
sad part is that we will, in all realistic ways, will probably never know, right? Because it's such a
we never
contained
know how many people died in
disaster.
Kedarnath. No?
Yeah.
Kedarnath, imagine so many families gone, and that's
I had
fine. It actually
someone
at least.
who worked with me. She lost both her parents.
Yeah.
Young
And
girl,
did she find
21
their
year old.
mortal remains? Was she able to find them
No,
or not at all? Just disappeared, right? Yeah,
just gone.
exactly.
Just
Yeah,
gone.
absolutely. And the same thing is like if you look at that video, in that one frame, and the only frame and the only video that all the media houses have, there are at least 20 people running here and there. And this is
Yeah.
season. So imagine those 20 people dead to honge hi, plus all those big buildings. Usme koi to hoga, receptionist hoga, agar koi nahi hoga to. As in those 20 buildings that have actually completely got
What I've
culled.
heard from the ground, like through sources, is that maybe of the entire area, maybe 6 buildings are standing. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. So that on one
So-
side, so there are two things. So there's an old village there, which was actually away from the main Bhagirathi river and थोड़ा ऊपर है, तो वो बच गया. पुराना एक मंदिर है वो बचा है, लेकिन जो नया कंस्ट्रक्शन था जो that came in the waterway, that's completely gone. Everything is gone, and which almost means like almost a village of whatever. I think 13 acre. I don't know, some
I
reports
think
about.
about 1,200 minimum. I think about 2,000 people are there. But this was also for our audience. This was also apple harvesting season, and this is an area where they grow a lot of apples, and it's a lot of seasonal labor which is there. So it was really packed. It was full. The village was full. It was bustling, and you can tell it's
And
a
it's
very
26
peaceful
kilometers from Gangotri, by the way, and this is the peak time for that Char Dham Yatra. As we, like imagine if there were 500 people in Gangotri that they're saying, which I don't believe it should be. As anyone who's gone to Gangotri, Yamunotri during season time, that at least there are lakhs of people there. But say whatever 5,000 or 2,000 or 1,000. Imagine. So this is like almost like a station before 26 kilometers, which is an hour away from Gangotri. So the tourists, the season time, the locals who live there, the apple orchard, because it's at an altitude and therefore apple farming that happens at that area. But yeah, we don't have a number. We don't even have, like, that's the sad part about many of these stories. And again, if this is climate change, where is the climate minister of India? I know you don't like the government so much, so therefore.
No, I do like the government, but I mean,
you're very critical of the current. I know you're very critical of the current government, and therefore I'm saying that
I wouldn't be doing this show
if I ask you right now, live TV pe, who's the environment minister of India?
Of course, Mr. Bhupender Yadav, he is.
but उनका कुछ भी आया अभी तक? आपको पता है क्योंकि आपको पता है.
No,
but majority of the country doesn't even know.
I'll tell you, because we're still trying to figure out what exactly happened. Now, are we jumping the gun?
But by the way, 1 month say climate events have been happening in Himachal. 200 people have died. We call this a climate event, waiting for this to happen. And the same thing from Ladakh to, as I always say, this has been happening from Ladakh to Arunachal. But there's no response, as then in all of this. Is
it the environment minister who should respond, or is it the fact that we have all this construction and things like that going on?
No, I don't. I think it's
a kind of question.
So then, construction largely, when you look at the cause, so there are two things that we talk about. One is, okay, let's look at climate change, for example, right? So climate change in a particular area.
First, is this a cloud burst or is this a glacial melting situation?
So
now
there's been a lot of so there's a lot of conversation around that, because the IMD report says that it wasn't 100 mm rainfall, and therefore it can't be cloud burst. Cloud burst means a minimum amount of rainfall in that sense, and And therefore, some studies and some experts are saying that. And so, yesterday also I was talking about it, and like it doesn't really matter at this stage. As in, the damage that we're talking about would be similar, less or more here and there, and therefore it's more of an academic conversation. The impact or the sludge or the landslides that you're talking about with that force would be very, very similar if it was a cloudburst. In fact, so therefore IMD is saying that it wasn't a cloudburst. So therefore it was basically, we're actually talking about there was a glacial lake, and there was a glacial avalanche of sort of a thing. Glock जिसको कहते हैं. So और उसके कारण वो सारा का सारा area which had, so the glacier had melted, and there were rocks and pebbles and this and then loose soil. But it's irrespective of whether it was this or that. And tomorrow, by the way, there were other cloudbursts, and there have been cloudbursts. There have been, so as per government data last year, this, in 2 months of monsoon, as per government's own admission, there were around 35 weather events, climate events in that sense. So we know about this. And the fact that I was in Himachal just last week. In fact, I had gone to Sirmaur with school students, and of course that Sirmaur is where I was in Nahan, which is Shivalik, and which is not deep inside, and it's not a high altitude area. But in ऊपर उसके आगे मंडी, हर जगह तबाही. So ये हो रहा है, and this is something that we've seen last year, the kind of flood fury that was there in Himachal, in Uttarakhand, Chamoli, that entire area. There's so many cloudbursts that have taken place. So from a glacial avalanche to a cloudburst, or just a flash flood for that matter, what happened in Shimla last year, it was, those visuals of buildings floating and everything else. Because, so what we have done, and that's where we need to understand what I was coming at, is that one is that if, say, climate change is a lot of times it's a very easy excuse to say climate phenomena, because climate phenomena is, it's a latitude longitude agnostic, in the sense, whatever that an American is doing, that has an impact on, that's global warming and sea rising and this, that, and the other. But climate change also has local contributors and local phenomena also. So local contribution. But the other is that climate change actually affects, there's something called climate vulnerability. So vulnerability of a flash flood in a soil type like Himalayas would be very, very different from say a Kota or a Gurgaon or something else. And what we've ended up doing is that our vulnerability gets accentuated or gets multifold when you have really blocked those remedy methods. So, for example, so what we are talking about is that there might be same amount of rain, but there'll be more frequent and more intense rain. So that's what frequent climate events and more intense this thing. So, अगर 100 mm की बारिश अगर पूरे दिन में होना था तो वो 1 घंटे में हो जाएगा, तो वही चीजें पूरे सीजन का.
We had something happen in Texas, which was a lot worse actually, because there were some schoolgirls and camps, and many, I think 20 or more were killed. And that was also a flood-like situation. So it is a fact. It is happening the world over, no matter how developed.
But their preparation, and of course, no one can, imagine last week, Gurgaon also got flooded. But here what we're talking about is that, imagine we have actually very consciously, we've done that in Gurgaon. Like we have actually built, the entire water drainage system that historically Gurgaon had. As in, if you look at the first master plan, this place was not supposed to have any settlement. To now, it's whatever that it is.
Construction over it. Yeah,
वो basically पानी था जो यहाँ से साहिबी तक जाना था और साहिबी के बाद यमुना में जाना था. वहाँ पे you built roads and highways and NH and golf course road and everything else, and therefore the entire area is flooded. Similarly, what we have done in the Himalayas, this Char Dham road, and all of that has happened in the name of national security. So first it was in the name of tourism. They're not getting clearances for that. And then it became a national security. And then what it actually happened is that this entire 889 kilometer road project, which as per the Supreme Court guidelines and NGT guidelines, any road project that is more than 100 kilometers that you commission, that the government commissions, they need to have an environmental impact assessment. So ideally, in a road length like this, you would do something like this. So उन्होंने क्या किया उसको they sliced this entire road Char Dham project, and this is only one of the projects that I'm talking about that's going on in the Himalayas, and we need to be honest about why Himalaya is the way it is. And again, I'm talking from Ladakh to Arunachal in that sense, and I'm not singling out Uttarakhand for our conversation right now in that sense, or Himachal. So it's Uttarakhand
focus on that.
Sorry,
I said let's focus on that.
Yeah. So in this stretch itself, 53 slices of that project, and therefore no environmental impact assessment. Supreme Court created this Chopra Committee report. Chopra Committee report said, don't do this. Himalaya, this kind of road that you want to build, which is a 12-meter broad road with 10-meter pitch, that is, how will you do it? You can't really slice a road that wide. Then you will not be able to do the sloping the way it should be from the safety and geological reasons. And also what it would do is that Himalayas is not just about Ganga and Yamuna. It's also about other, lots of streams. You from that area, and that, in this time, there's so many rain-fed rivers, rivulets, waterfalls, and all of that. So last 2 years, if you look at the kind of damage, why have the roads and the fancy highways given way? They've given way because they were built in the waterway, and it's been reclaimed by that little waterfall in Shimla or in Mandi or in Manali or in Uttarakhand or in Chamoli.
Here's the issue, right? I'm very conflicted about this because I can see the damage that it's doing, but I also see the need for livelihood. I also see the need for development.
Nobody's saying no. Nobody's saying, okay, so that's where our common sense and our intellect and our engineering marvel has to happen. Nobody's saying Himalayas doesn't need roads. It does need roads, but make it proper, no? Because you're spending 3 times more money and losing lives and losing a climate resource called Himalayas. Himalayas is not just, it's, one of the biggest assets, as in if you call entire country's economy, culture, heritage, and environment depends on this thing called the Himalayan range. The cold barrier that we're talking about, to most of your rivers, as you imagine, 2 prominent rivers, 500 to 600 million people depend on Ganga, Yamuna alone. Your entire agriculture, silt, this thing, your supply of hydroelectricity, electricity, Tehri, and many other projects that are there. So you have to really, therefore, just because khana hai, to ek hi din thodi kha lena hai aapko. You need such, and we need roads. Nobody is against development. Nobody is saying that a Pahadi should walk for 5 kilometers to reach the nearest PHC or to the nearest school. As I went, when I was telling you, I went to Sirmaur, and in that, I visited some local government schools. I spent 2 days there. And the kids actually walked 5 to 7 kilometers crossing streams. So the school principal was telling us that, they've told the kids that nahi aana hai school aapko abhi. क्योंकि आपको स्ट्रीम क्रॉस करके आना होता है, बट दे हैव टू डू इट. सो देयरफॉर वहां रोड है, वहां तो वो अलग रीजन है कि रोड बस जो है वो 7 बजे, एक ही बस है जो 7 बजे पहुंचा देती है आपको. ऐसा थोड़ी कि आपको वो, जब हम बहुत बार ना रोड के एक्सक्यूज में, किसके लिए रोड, किसके लिए?
No, and I'll tell you,
whose development are we talking about? I mean, a lot of times, and we had this, and today is not the time. But linked one analogy that I want to draw, as in fine, as in some of your fans might not like it. So when we build a dam in Narmada, for example, Sardar Sarovar, for example, and fine, it's an old debate. Does that, and the tribal's house gets displaced? What do we say? In the greater common good, in the larger interest of people. In the larger interest of people that you've defined, is that people or that person also part of that? So Delhi should get 24-hour electricity. For that, it's okay if a poor tribal has to compromise his or her life and livelihood and become a rickshawala in Indore. So somewhere we need to understand that. I'm not saying that electricity is extremely important.
What kind of rehabilitation are you doing? What kind of compensation are you giving?
Exactly. So make a road which is appropriate.
Fairness,
carrying capacity ke saath, and what is appropriate to that place, to that geology. Because if you're not taking the soil type into consideration and building a very fancy penthouse there, then that penthouse will collapse one day, no? And that is being stupid. It's not about Yeah, some of the cutting down of trees. In this area, by the way, अभी एक application आया है, शायद 100 या 150 और पेड़ काट रहे थे इसके ऊपर देवदार का. इस पूरे एरिया में 56,000. by the way, एक प्रोजेक्ट डिस्कस कर रहे हैं हम. There's a tunnel project, which is railway वाला. जो सिल्कियारी का तो पिछले साल सिल्कियारी टनल collapsed. No safety and environmental norms followed, and that's why it sunk in. You remember, 30 people or 26 people were trapped in Uttarakhand near Barkot. Yeah? And similarly, all around there's this Char Dham road rail project and blasting of Himalayas going on. Who could tell you?
But Vimlendu, I'll tell you, my village, to get to my village, this train is, and I'm not even in that remote an area. I'm in a moderately remote area. This train is a godsend. You hop on it.
This is not where. Which part are you talking about? You're talking Kumaon, na?
No, I'm Garhwal. I'm Pauri Garhwal.
Kahan pe train kaun si?
Happening. They're starting a train. They're building those tunnels and everything from Rishikesh, which will take you to Srinagar as one.
And then Dev Prayag ke us paar bhi jo hai Srinagar.
Huh?
Dev Prayag ke us par hai Srinagar.
Correct. So my village is closer to Srinagar. So up till now, you were subject to these narrow roads. The driving there is perilous. It can be.
But fine, it will make your life convenient. Time bach jayega, right? Time bach jayega, lekin zindagi chal jayegi.
Safety, timing.
Safety, because of that blasting, the entire Joshimath is sinking. That's where I'm saying that somewhere we all fall for this narrative of. Sorry?
Joshimath was sinking before that also.
No. Joshimath sinking is happening last couple of years. And say, for example, if we agree
1970s, there was a survey that was conducted.
All the more reason, therefore, that why do you need dynamites then? All the more reason that why should you do dynamites? Agar maan lo, if it...
we have a very active viewership, by the way. They keep popping up.
So imagine we might be able to build a very nice high-speed Vande Bharat train, and then those tunnels collapse and in the process, in this entire bargain, we lose the Himalayas. Would you like it?
No,
and that's exactly what is happening. But that's exactly what is happening.
But then let me counter you. Let me ask you. My grandfather walked 20 kilometers to get an education. Okay. Today, kids are still walking 5 to 7 kilometers to get an education.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the only reason I had an easy education is because I had a bus that came and picked me up from outside my home and took me to school and then dropped me back outside my home. Right. So but I had to move out of my state, my culture, all of that, move away from it. But if I had grown up there again in that same area, I would maybe not walk 20 kilometers. I would maybe walk 5.
Absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely.
I can't argue with that.
But we are actually comparing apples and oranges here because I'll tell you why. Nobody is saying that we need, but आपने बना दिया, आपको बहुत अच्छा घर चाहिए, लेकिन उसके लिए फाउंडेशन ही अगर नहीं है वहां पे, तो घर बना के क्या करोगे? तो गिर जाएगा ना. वो बेवकूफी है ना बनाना. वहां पे आपको घर रहने के लिए छत चाहिए. आप नदी के बीच में आपको कोई जमीन देगा, बोलेगा बना लो जमीन. क्या तुम तो सड़क प्लेटफॉर्म पे सोते हो रात भर. व्हाई डोंट यू मेक दिस थिंग? और अगले साल वो कटाव आएगा और कट जाएगा. कोसी में बाढ़ आएगा और कट जाएगा. विल यू बी ओके विद इट? सो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग अगेन एंड अगेन, दैट इट नीड्स टू बी appropriate, and we need to scientifically look at the carrying capacity. Nobody is saying that मेरे लिए तो ब्लिंकिट 10 मिनट में यहाँ पे सैंडविच भी आ जाता है और वहाँ बच्चे 10 किलोमीटर चल के जाते हैं. ये अन्याय है ये. And therefore it's very elitist.
To go to the hospital, but again, even today, Vimlendu, to go to the hospital, people are carried on khatiyas.
But एक जान बचाने के चक्कर में आप इंटरजेनरेशनल क्राइसिस कर रहे हैं ना. आप पूरे अगले 200 साल को मार रहे हैं just because that one person can reach the hospital faster. We need to understand, and therefore solution to that. See, I keep saying this, that there's a traffic problem in Delhi. There are two solutions that we have for traffic traffic congestion that we have. One is that you broaden the roads, better roads, road infrastructure. The other is decrease the number of cars. What you are advocating for is broaden the road. I'm saying is that lesser number of cars, because that broadening it's never ending.
I understand that, but I'm coming from a situation where there are no roads.
I know. But therefore, build roads which are climate resilient, and there could be roads that could you make roads so that people can move. People should not face that challenge. There needs to be primary health infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure. We need to look at there's so much technology that is there. But what have we done? If in the process we know that a Devdar tree or any tree that you chop, that area that causes soil erosion and is the main cause of landslides and eventually is a cause of and I'm talking about local damage. I'm not even talking about our overall water security and other issues that is getting threatened because of climate change. I'm only talking about that person in Garhwal, that person in Harsil, his or her life. Imagine those now. रोड तो बहुत अच्छा बन गया वहां पे ना, बहुत फैंसी. अब वो किसी ने अपना होम स्टे जो बनाया था, 3 पुश्तों की कमाई से उसने वो होम स्टे बनाया होगा 4 मंजिला, और से पूरा का पूरा परिवार चलता होगा. बाय द वे, as in, so I do that Yamuna Yatra every year. I take this school called Basant Valley School students for last 25 years. And we go to this place, the base camp there is called, जैसे ये हर्सिल जैसा नहीं, but Gangotri. So Yamunotri ke pehle, there's a place called Janki Chatti, which is, and from there you trek 5 kilometers. So I'm not comparing Harsil with Janki Chatti in that sense, but just that entire Janki Chatti actually is a small little town, which is like the base camp in that sense, which only has hotels and things. And there's a small little Pujari village, and there's that. And people there actually have invested in construction and, building these holiday homes and hotels. But they actually, winter में क्या करते हैं, जो जिनके पास resource है, वो बरकोट में आके रहते हैं या फिर देहरादून में आके रहते हैं. तो उनका सेकंड होम वो सीजन टाइम 3 महीने के लिए वो जानकी चट्टी या यमुनोत्री में रहते हैं, और बाकी टाइम वो नीचे आते हैं, क्योंकि हर्सिल also is snow, right? As in, उसके आसपास ही area है. So therefore, and also access to better education, because if your earning capacity increases, then you want to go to an English medium school there, and all of that. And those are aspirational requirements. Also healthcare, because the nearest hospital would be like 2.5 hours.
This is not a rich state. We're not a rich people. Yeah. We're not entrepreneurial in that sense. Most of us are either in the armed forces or in hospitality or in those kind of sectors. So you do need education to get ahead. We don't come from these like landed, like I know in like Haryana, for example, the local people are very landed, and the ones who are from Gurgaon have just hit gold. That's not happening in Uttarakhand. But because we don't have those kind of landholdings. I know, it's so sad. No, but some
I
of
think
them have been
they've never invested that money into anything. I had a taxi driver day before yesterday. I was going for a meeting here, and there was a traffic jam, and he had a house in Sona Road, as from that Sona village, and he was abusing right, left, and center and he was regretting it, that he sold it, and what have we made Gurgaon as, and talking about how Gurgaon gives so much revenue and such a messy state. So anyway, coming back to our Uttarakhand crisis, I think we need to take a step back, and because we call ourselves thinking human beings, and at least, or we right now, when we're looking at analyzing and what is our purpose, what am I trying to do here, or you trying to do here, is like, can we avert 2 things? One is, can event like that, can a climate event like that be averted? That's one. Second is, can the damage by an event like that be mitigated in some way, right? As that's what our in the sense, ताकि कम से कम वो घर अगर वहां नहीं होता, क्लाउड बस्ट अगर हो भी गया होता वहां पे क्लाइमेट चेंज के कारण, तो कम से कम वो घर अगर नहीं होते तो कम से कम वो 200 लोग तो बच जाते, या 500 लोग तो बच जाते. केदारनाथ में अगर वहां पे हैंगिंग कंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं होता तो लोग तो बच जाते. सो एक तो है कि हम बारिश रोक सकते हैं क्या, अनटाइमली फ्लड, अनटाइमली ड्राउट, हीट वेव. एक तो हमारा क्वेश्चन ये है ना, बाय द वे, हम आज फ्लड डिस्कस कर रहे हैं ना, 3 महीने बाद हम एक्यूट स्नोफॉल डिस्कस करेंगे, और मई में आई वाज डिस्कसिंग ड्राउट एंड हीट वेव इन द हिल्स. The same TV channels were running, and imagining this is happening there. I was surprised. I was in Sirmaur, and beautiful. Every room had an aircon. Can you imagine? You go to the Himalayas, and now you have air conditioners everywhere. So these are the two main questions that we need to ask or answer, ask
And the
ourselves.
third, and the third, I was shocked that the villagers warned each other. They had about 22 seconds, and they
Yeah,
warned
yeah,
each other
40
through
seconds.
traditional
It was like that
whistling,
aircraft.
through
It
whistling,
was that
through
Air
whistling.
India crash jo tha na 40 second mein down. This was
I
40
know.
second mein down.
No, but it was through whistling. So here I'm
Yeah,
thinking, don't they have rain sensors? Don't they have a
they
warning
do.
system
After
that can?
and that's where that governance. Imagine what face, and that's
Yes.
where when I asked you that question about Bhupendra Yadav, or for that matter, Nitin Gadkari, also the most performing minister of this
Or the
country,
state
so
government.
called.
I hold the
But no, no,
state
no, no, no,
government.
no, no, no. This is that's where. So Thikra, it's very easy. Only face that you see in entire disaster is of the CM. Fine, yes,
Correct.
but this early warning, which is unfair. Account, because we need to understand that this is climate change. There's a ministry called climate change, but that has become a ministry of clearance rather than ministry of conservation. We need to have one plan from Ladakh to Arunachal, because by the way, last year we had that lake collapse in Sikkim, no, as in that hydel project near the army camp got washed away in Gangtok. Sikkim में हुआ था वो. अभी भी हुआ है, अभी भी उस एरिया में हुआ है. So we need to really have a plan for the entire Himalayas, and that can only be done by the central government. One. Two, if right now in these places, rather than in 2013 when Kedarnath tragedy happened, there was investment and there was these installation of these stations for early warning system. In fact, when I was on television programs yesterday and day before, they were talking about that. Yes, IMD says नहीं, हमने तो करा था warning. आपने warning करा, लोगों ने सुना नहीं सुना, evacuation हुआ नहीं हुआ. एक तो I live in Gurgaon, you live in Gurgaon too. Tell me one thing. Every time there's a heavy rainfall, उसके बाद 2 घंटे के बाद SMS आता है कि thunderstorm आने वाला है. If this is the situation of early warning system in Delhi. No, but imagine that बारिश जब खत्म हो जाती है, उसके 2 घंटे बाद दिल्ली में हमें 2-3 घंटे बाद जब पूरा बाढ़ हो गया, दिल्ली डूब गया, फ्लाइट्स कैंसिल हो गए, तब आता है थंडरस्टॉर्म का. I have 4 messages post. So दिल्ली वहां का वार्निंग सिस्टम क्या काम कर रहा था? तो नहीं काम कर रहा था. तो टिक बॉक्स तो कर दिया उन्होंने 2013 में. They built these early warning systems, but those early warning systems either are not working, or the dissemination is not working, or the enforcement of that in terms of the local government, as in the DM or the local level, there should be like, I don't know if you remember, ये 4-5 साल पहले हुआ था, नहीं हो गया, I think it's been 7-8 years. Some students had gone to do picnic in Himachal and they were on the riverbed and वो डैम से नीचे 10 किलोमीटर नीचे वो पार्टी कर रहे थे. And suddenly the waterways, they have to release water from the dam. They released the water and they were supposed to have that siren and that warning in these. They all got washed away. Because they didn't know, as they were in the riverbed. They were just chilling. They thought, and I was actually thinking that, I went to a waterfall right now when I went to Chiplun, when I was driving through Western Ghats. And of course, as I got very excited, but for 2 minutes, I went in and under the waterfall. And then a friend called and said, oh, well, don't, because you don't know where that waterfall is coming from, or if there's suddenly a sludge and then you go. And those are the accidents that have taken place I think in South Goa and a couple of other places. You're not allowed to enter waterfalls in these times. So if we know that this is happening, if we know there's glacial, there's cloud bursts, आपने कोई चेक एंड बैलेंस नहीं किया, आपका अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम काम नहीं कर रहा है. अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम फॉर गवर्नेंस जो है कि हर साल आपके ये इवेंट्स हो रहे हैं. मैंने बोला ना 30 to 35 climate events.
You can't predict these.
No, you can't. But you can warn. But you
can say,
and that's
you
why.
can warn, and even if you warn, you can't predict the location even.
No,
you
but
can say
but what happened after Kedarnath? No. What happened?
Region
there's
you
difference.
can pinpoint.
No, so the planning, when you know intelligence governance and solid, robust governance is that when you've had a Kedarnath and you don't want to repeat Kedarnath, don't allow any kind of a settlement in the flood zone or in areas that can be affected by a flash flood like situation. And you think this is the last Harsel? God forbid, as in, and the story from ground is that, weather is better today. What if this season itself, this is not the last tunnel collapse, it's not the last cloudburst or last Harsel or last Kedarnath. And so we have to, therefore, when we say that climate adaptation के बारे में हम सारे लोग कॉन्फ्रेंस में जाते हैं ना, NGOs वाले ज्यादा जाते हैं, climate adaptation.
You get
I
those
don't,
pens and files and diaries and all.
The folder and the badge and all 5-star and wine. Yeah.
Jute bags.
नहीं, वो विदेश में नहीं मिलता, विदेश यहाँ पे मिलता है, इंडिया हैबिटेट सेंटर में मिलता है. मैं नहीं, अब वो बचपन में मैंने किया था, अब नहीं आता हूँ. It's been, I think, many years. I think been 6-7 years that I've stopped going outside of India for any conference. I was like, no, I don't travel anymore because it's all bull in that sense. So, yeah, sorry, yeah.
That's the next conversation.
So climate adaptation largely is what we need to work on. Last 20 years of in all these conferences, in all these IPCC reports, in all these intergovernmental panels, and of your favorite and my most favorite person called the Prime Minister talks about climate change. It needs to translate on ground into action points, and that needs to be policy and then project.
You gotta like his solar push. You can't hate everything.
No, so everything is not industrial. Climate adaptation is not setting up factories for everything. We need to understand, that's where we need to understand governance is not, I'm not recruited an industrialist. I have not elected an industrialist to set up factories for climate mitigation. There's been system. Governance is not about setting up only bread banane ki machine ya pad banane ki machine ya fir solar panel banane ki machine hi nahi hota na. Climate mitigation, adaptation is all of that. So there are two parts of climate conversation, right? So climate adaptation, कि अगर ये होगा तो आप कैसे adapt करें हम कि ताकि climate change कम हो, ताकि हमारा temperature rise जो है वो कम हो, ताकि cloud burst events कम हो, minimal हो. और by the way, इसका आज वो conversation नहीं है, हम कभी और करेंगे और भगवान ना करे ऐसा हो, लेकिन we will talk about coastal, the crisis of the coastline and the climate change in impact on the fisheries.
I feel very fearful about an earthquake actually when it comes to Uttarakhand. I'm more worried about earthquakes than cloud bursts.
And by the way, and I said that yesterday again and again, this is political party agnostic. Everyone has treated Himalaya as if, like Tehri is a disaster. Like in the high seismic zone, you've created a water column in an area which, if God forbid any crack, anything happens, you will have Rishikesh, like with a cloud burst in Kedarnath, which is further up, you had Rishikesh inundated and Haridwar flooded. Imagine a water column of Tehri. And that is what, when people were raising these issues, Sundarlal Bahuguna and others, we think, oh, well, you are anti-development. But in the long run, like wo jo kehte hain na ki baad mein pata chalega, abhi aap, I told you so. And a lot of that, unfortunately, a lot of I told you so's are proving right. As we need roads, we need industry, we need jobs, we need opportunities.
Yeah, because Vimlendu, it's almost like, you're either pro-development or anti-development. And environmentalists
नहीं होना चाहिए ऐसा. Development is very important.
Environmentalists so far always come across as being anti-development.
No. We are not anti-development. We are anti this faulty definition of development, which is more of cartels and mafia raj that we're talking about. Development has to be inclusive, has to be sustainable, has to be long-term, has to be everybody's. As I told you, in my conversation with you last 40 minutes, did I tell you that roads are not needed? Of course needed. Do we not need, for national security, our tanks and our heavy vehicles to be able to reach our political base? Of course, fine, let's do it, because that's the Chinese border and so on and so forth. Do we not need schools like how we have Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan here in Rajasthan and Bihar and Uttar Pradesh? Every 1 kilometer of school. Should not there be school and a good school with a good infrastructure in the Himalayas as well?
You won't find teachers.
Sorry?
You won't find doctors. You
Exactly.
don't.
So that's
For
a different thing.
example,
But I'm
I've
saying that
looked at a lot of
therefore
the
I'm not
different
against it.
models. No, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you
So
why
I'm
you
not
don't have.
against that.
So Vimlendu,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you why you don't have teachers and doctors is because people don't want to live there. Nobody wants to live there. They're like, why should we suffer
Absolutely.
over here?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm almost like, in short, if there's a medical college and
And
these
that is
kids
where
are getting
governance comes. That is where
they should-
governance comes. That if my taxpayers' money has gone in educating people in Lady Harding or in AIMS or in Safdarjung, why shouldn't it be mandatory for them rather than they
Exactly.
joining Manipal and Max Hospital after graduation? Why shouldn't 2 years of service be that? Or
Exactly.
by the way, again, I don't think okay. So you and I'm taking it on myself. A lot of times I'm also giving you a very simplistic answer to these complex questions, right? It's not so
No, but that's why
simple.
we
There
need to
is
understand it.
हाँ बहुत मतलब इसमें बहुत कुछ चीजें हैं. ह्यूमन सेटलमेंट है, लाइवलीहुड है, माइग्रेशन कैसे रोक सकते हैं आप उसके ऑपोजिशन और उसको आप so we do this exercise when I go to I spend a lot of time in the mountains and in the villages, and we ask these children, and in last 25 years I've actually documented not not formal documentation but in oral conversations of their aspirations of what do they want to do. So from it has from 15 years ago, every girl or a boy wanted to actually join the army or join the police. The aspiration wala, वो बहुत बड़ी चीज थी. To now, from them to becoming a fashion person. Again, I'm not saying whether they'll become or not, but they've started dreaming, they've started thinking about that.
Have expanded.
And then some of them are struggling and doing, and I think we need to, what I'm saying is that just because we have not reached as fast as we have in other parts in the plains, we can't topo our model there because it will make situations worse. We do need roads, but not the kind of roads that we are used to. Bring in experts. Do you think, I don't know if you've been to this place called, there's something called there's Yellowstone National Park in America, right?
Yeah.
So I went there twice through 2 different routes. So once I went through Montana, and then एक बार मैं गया था ये Jackson Hole, Wyoming होके. And completely snow-covered areas, right? The kind of snowfall that you get there is not. Roads do survive.
Yes.
Roads
yes.
fine.
They have salt machines.
I'm giving you a very simple. I'm giving you any scientist will slap me for saying this though, because I'm trying to make it very commonsensical, and I'm giving you a wrong answer though, because you can't compare Himalaya to Yellowstone. Himalaya is a young, dynamic, fragile. Correct. So, but I'm just for our audience to understand. But for our audience that कैसा environmentist उसको ये भी नहीं पता है कि हिमालय और Yellowstone में क्या difference है. But therefore, appropriate to that area, looking at the kind of, say, a hurricane or an avalanche or a snowfall, and the fact that they'll be covered in, say, 20 feet snowfall, they have been able to maintain that road infrastructure and many other things. Similarly here, and today I was reading something about...
You're not wrong. What is the harm in declaring large areas as ecological zones and natural habitats?
It already is. By the way, this area comes under Bhagirathi Eco Zone. We are not supposed to do the kind of development. तो वही नॉर्म ही फॉलो करते हैं ना. आप क्या करते हैं? सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जब बोला कि 100 किलोमीटर के बाद परमिशन लेना है ही लेना है, आपके ऊपर लेना है, तो भाई साहब ने छोटे-छोटे स्लाइस कर दिए. नो परमिशन नीडेड. ब्लास्ट कर दिया, बना दिया, रोड बन गया. 889 किलोमीटर का रोड बन गया. और वो सारे रोड्स, ever you go on a Char Dham road, any small rain, I'm not even talking about a cloudburst or a Glock. पूरा का पूरा mountain छिला हुआ है. It's shaven. And all the pine trees are actually falling. So that
we don't go during the monsoons only. We don't go during the monsoons.
But imagine, you don't. But what happens to the local person? His house, his livelihood, and his farming, his fields, his rivers.
Everyone in the mountains knows you shouldn't come up during the monsoons. In fact, if anyone asks me, I always say don't go in the monsoons. because whatever happens, it doesn't work. But what's Vimlendu, what do we do going forward? What's the way forward? Is it just going to
I
be
think we need to take a few
chatter
steps
till
back.
the
I
next?
think it's very so at the highest level, we need to, really have good, honest political will. And I think one see some things are we can't. It's not हमारा MCB switch खराब थोड़ी हो गया जिसके कारण बारिश हुआ है, वो बारिश वगैरह होगा. So कुछ चीजों में हम कुछ चीजें नहीं कर सकते हैं. But I think if we can we do have a national climate change plan and all of that. I think we need to really have a Himalayan plan and take it seriously. Again, it's very similar to the air pollution conversation that, Delhi's air pollution, if needs to be sorted, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, everyone will have to sit together, central government and the state governments. Uh, yeah. So I think that's the kind of plan that we need. People will not know that why are we laughing, but it's okay.
No, this is on the screen.
अच्छा
Don't
वो
worry.
YouTube में भी आएगा ये?
This has come on YouTube. So I've
okay.
broadcast it to everybody.
Okay. No, I thought it will
We'd
go
like
in
to
the comment
explain.
section rather than it might go later. It will go in the comment section rather than the
No,
running
we're
video,
live.
right?
We're live. So everything goes live.
Okay.
And
Acha,
yeah.
So anyway, so we need to have that kind of a plan, central plan. We will have to really do some sort of a risk assessment of this. I think this is the biggest challenge that we have because also from a capitalist way of governance understanding point of view कि आप 100 रुपए का सड़क हर साल बनाओगे इससे अच्छा कि 500 रुपए का एक बार बनाओ और 500 साल तक रहे ना.
No, I agree.
Imagine
and we're a dying
what
culture. Our Garhwali culture is a dying culture, and these four-way lanes and everything.
Yeah, and also rationing, like if carrying capacity is not for 1 lakh people. Imagine there was a stampede in Yamunotri last month. Go to Kedarnath, Badrinath, you look at your धर्मशाला, लोग चूल्हे के पास सोते हैं. तो हम किसी को we don't want to stop someone from meeting Shivji or Yamuna Ma or whoever, but if that place doesn't have the today we don't even talk about plastic. I have photographs of that place. The entire mountain area looks blue, green, yellow, red of raincoats and your chips packets and your water bottle. There's no waste.
Maggie packets, right? Maggie in the hills.
Correct.
So
अब ये हम बोलेंगे अरे उनको भी तो मन है ना, उन
हाँ.
छोटे से बच्चे को भी तो मन है ना मैगी खाने का. तो वो छोटे बच्चे के नाम पे हम बहुत सारे पर्ची फाड़ चुके हैं. ये हम लोग हैं जो करते हैं सारा ज्यादा से ज्यादा. हमारे जो टूरिस्ट जाते हैं वो ज्यादा करते हैं और फिर उससे एस्पिरेशन होता है. और सो इकोलॉजिकल चैलेंज जो हिमालय का है और बहुत मतलब soil erosion to loss of wildlife and the interconnectedness that it has to other flora, fauna and our ecosystem, to the water streams that are actually, will you believe that most of our two prominent rivers and our water comes out of Himalayas, but several districts of Uttarakhand has drought year after year. So, why you studied in Mussoorie or Dehradun? Where did you study?
Dehradun.
So, वहाँ से Dehradun से Mussoorie, have you been there recently?
Yeah, not in the last 2 years.
In last 2-3 years, Rajpur Road se Mussoorie.
Malsi. I know. I live there. I live in Malsi, which
is
there
are these hill view apartments, multi-story, like 10 story buildings. There's a Rajpur Road ended at that. There was to be Madhuban Hotel or something is where I remember going there in 2003. Yeah, 2003 is when I went there first, and I stayed at the Madhuban Hotel. And that was the last thing. And after that, your entire drive, उसमें 1-2 जगह कहीं मैगी का point था to Mussoorie. I used to, but otherwise nothing. तो ना उसके बाद तो 15 तो पेट्रोल पंप हैं, 4 बार्स हैं, 4 मॉल है, एक ताज है, मतलब the entire area. And now apparently what they're doing to decongest Mussoorie. How do you decongest that road? To decongest Mussoorie, they're building 3 more roads to Mussoorie. Not the only Dehradun. So again, that's what the problem is. Nobody's saying that nobody should get access to Mussoorie, Dehradun, Mussoorie mobility. But अरे carrying यार एक मतलब ये तो यही है ना, just because, as in I'm not making a sexist statement here in that sense, just because I can actually give birth to a child, that doesn't mean I should get pregnant 20 times in a year, in my lifetime, just because I have that capacity. That Himalaya is not ready for the kind of development that we are imagining for our convenience. And in our short-term myopic understanding and very, very selfish, private understanding of convenience, we think that, oh well, mere dadaji, not you, but whoever, in that sense, कि उनको access नहीं था education का, उसके चक्कर में हम पता है अगले 20 साल 40 साल 2-3 generation का basic air and quality or culture and heritage and nature sub is getting compromised, and it's happening brick by brick, rock by rock.
It's a life of grave hardship. I mean, you
Yes.
tell me to go back and move there, I'll think half a dozen to a dozen times. I mean, and I'm being real
absolutely,
here.
and but that's
It's
what,
not
as in,
easy
see,
life.
that's again, if someone asked me to go back and live in Bhagalpur, that's where I come from in Bihar, I don't want to go there also, because whatever, I understand all of that, because access to our so again,
I'm just saying
so there's
access
something
to
called
health facilities.
correct. So एक चीज है quality of life और standard of living. मैं बार बार बोलता हूँ इस चीज के बारे में. A lot of this development conversation, the problem, the lacuna in the development conversation, which is the bad one, not the right development we talk about, is that it revolves around standard of living discourse and not quality of life discourse. But development ideally should be quality of life more, and of course, how quality of life can also improve your standard of living. It cannot just be what I told you, that road traffic, as in, I say that, if more and more people are falling ill in Delhi, there are two solutions that you have. One is to build more hospitals, and the other is to really make sure that your water is clean and your public health is better.
I mean, that your crops are not full
contaminated
of
air,
pesticides.
contaminated water ना हो तो asthma होगा ही नहीं. दूसरा है कि नहीं, there should be more respiratory, orthopedic, pulmonological wards हर जगह बना देते हैं. अरे भाई, वो end of pipe solution नहीं है, आपको ना beginning of pipe solution ढूंढना जरूरी है हर चीज का. हम हर चीज का end of pipe, कि हम pollute करेंगे फिर ठीक कर देंगे.
But Vimlendu, it's not like don't bring the metro there, but at least bring roads there, yeah.
Absolutely, no, do bring roads,
don't bring the
but
metro,
do build roads that survives.
Roads there.
Place appropriate, geology appropriate road banao. No one has a problem. No one is against roads at all. As in, it will be so pretentious and elitist to say that nahi, yaar tum belgadi pe kache sadak pe jao. No, not at all. But do I need that golf links ka glass facade 8-story spa to be opened there? No. I don't want a mall there. It can't survive. Acha. Yes, so we've had so many people from the hills.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
this was an
absolutely.
Yeah, and because people are actually very concerned about this, irrespective of political affiliation.
And we can only pray today that because tomorrow morning they said aaj wo bridge ban raha tha Gangnani mein, the army was, so kal is where tonight or tomorrow is when the first batch of road transport rescue team will actually reach there. So let's see. Hope things are okay. On
and we have to think of how to help. At least I'm personally thinking about how to help these people, at least some people, rehabilitate, and get their lives back in some way. But thank you so much, Vimlendu, for spending the time with us, and really appreciate you being here. Now we're moving on to our next topic, which is Rahul Gandhi and the election allegations. Vimlendu's ready. He's leaving. I'm joking. We're not
that's not my topic, right? Yeah.
This is not although he has interviewed you, so
yes,
that's one
okay.
thing. Yeah. So that's not this topic, so we can't discuss that now. But thank you so much for sparing the time, and hopefully you'll come back on our show. And wearing your white kurta and flowing hair maybe would be nice.
I'm scared now.
Yes, we need some eyeballs and eye candy. I'm all about the ratings.
Yeah. Chalo, see you.
Okay,
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.